All right. So last class we were discussing a program, we were discussing some of the concepts, and I'll just talk about those. But first of all, this will be in sequence. This is our lecture 8 that I will now place in our, week 6 contents, and it was supposed to be week 5, but again, this will come inside week 6. So we have discussed the inner exceptions, inheritance, specialization, and generalization. So today we'll be just building upon what we have learned before, and we'll be just talking about some of the interesting facts. And there was one thing that we left with, and if you remember, there was a little problem that was occurring. It was not a problem, rather, I was just missing few concepts over there. So we'll talk about that today. So let's start with some interesting concepts. So this was a class that we created last week. So this was a week 5 program that we were doing. So I'm just giving a quick review so that we are all on the same page and we know. Is there anyone in the waiting room? No, I think there is no one. All right. So this was a class that we were creating. It had 2 members. One of them was the public member. We said that it can be accessed outside. We have not talked thoroughly about these access modification, but we know that much, that a public is something that should be accessible outside of the class, and private is something that will be accessible during inside that class, but not outside of the environment. So it cannot be accessed outside of the class. Then we defined one of the constructor. I hope you people remember that this is the parent, like this is the constructor and the user class constructor, and user is our parent class over here. We have just defined the user as the parent class, as the main class that we have. Then we had we have defined a function like method, a public void get user info. So if you want to get user information about that, what you do is that you'll pass a string location to it, and we are setting this location. So this location was a private member, so we can access this private member inside this our own method. Why? Because we are inside this class, right? I'm just taking again a review for everyone so that we come on the same page. And then we just displayed the name. Name is the public member that could have been set anywhere, or that we have just printing over here. And then we are saying the location, and location is as we said, that location is a private member. So if we are calling this function, we are getting this private member, and then we can just print the value. And then we define another function print. We were just checking that polymorphism or method overriding sort of thing. And I'll just discuss today that what are the different things that we can do. So this was a class, and again with one constructor and 2 methods, right? One of them get user info, taking location, setting up the location, and one print method doing nothing special, just printing in parent, as we said, in user class. Now then we just created a child class of it, and you remember the child class, we are discussing inheritance in that. Good morning, Gurli, and good morning, Kamal. Good morning, Krupa. So basically what we did was that we created a child class super of this parent class user. So we said super here is derived child class, and user is the base or parent class. So we discussed about that. And in that, what we have done is we have just defined a single variable, and now we are defining the constructor of that class. And that constructor we are just calling, or we are just mentioning that it is child class constructor derived class 1. So it's a child class constructor super. Super is the child class that we have. Please don't confuse that again. Generally, super is used for the parent class, but again here, this super is a child of user, right? Then we have a get age function, which will be just printing up the age of the user, and we have just defined the age value over here. This was the important thing. Now we have another like a function, a method, which is print, and print method was also defined in our parent class as well, and in child class also we have got this print method. Okay, so let me just discuss where we left. So if I have just defined this void print over here, and I've just taken out the new, and I'll tell you why I've just taken out that thing over here. Right, and then if you see here that we have got, so it means that print function is also in the parent, and also it is there in our child class, right? In this child class, this print. So in the same way, we have just defined another class, and this class is inheriting from this super. Like again, this is the grandchild of user, and this is the direct child of this super class. So in that class, what we have done, we have just defined a constructor, a registration number, something, and then public void get registration. So we might not be using this class right now. We will be just right now handling these two, where we have just defined these two functions. This one. So if you remember, we talked about that if I create a user object, if I just create a user object, and user is what? User is our parent class, right? So we have created user super object equal to new user, right? And we are calling super obj dot print. And now what is that user? As I said, user is the parent class, and no big deal. What it will do is that it will just call its print function. So again, we are just concerned with the print function. We are not talking about the get location right now. So if I run that, so right. So good morning, Buller, Baldeep. I'm seeing your message now. Right. So this one is our program. Just run that one. It should be no big deal. Of course, it should be doing what it is supposed to do here. All right. So of course, user class constructor, user class is the parent class, and it's printing in user. So that's of course, that is not a big deal. Now there is something important that we want to discuss over here. And what is that? If I create an object of, the superclass, right? This one is the superclass. And now I want to create the object of superclass. Super, and just call it super object, no problems. New super. And now, so now I'm calling the print function. And of course, we know with that concept, we discussed about that. This super class is the child class. Let me just close this one. And let me just close this one. So super class is basically the child class of the user. And when I say super.print, if you see over here, you see this squiggly line, and we were discussing that right last class. So see here, it says the super.print hides inherited member. User.print use the new keyword if hiding was intended. So it says that this function, the print method that you are defining, it is hiding the definition of the parent class. And of course, that was the case that was happening. You were just confused about that. I myself. So now when I will call this one, you see which print will be called. So you see, user class constructor, this is the parent constructor. Of course, you remember that should be called first. And then we have child class constructor. Of course, while we are creating the child object, so it should be the child super class, super, which is our child class. Constructor will be called printing in child. And of course, the function which is running over here is the child function. You see, printing in child, this super. Why? Because it says that we have hidden, this squiggly line is showing that we have hidden the definition of the parent's print into this one. So they're asking, is it basically something that you wanted to do? So we'll say that yes, if we intentionally wanted to do that, we will just use this new keyword, and still it will work the same. Whatever it was just mentioning, it will just work the same. Again, child class constructor, and you see printing in child, the super class. Now the question which was that this is concept of method hiding. This is the method being hidden over there. Now, what are the different ways through which I can access that parent method. If I want to access this parent method, I don't, of course, it is overriding or it is just, hiding the concept of the parent class. But if I want to access it, if you remember, we have talked about with someone. So if I just write down base and I write down print over here, right? So what do I want? I want to call the parent function over here. If I run this program now, you see here, user class constructor, of course, parent, then child class constructor, child constructor, which is the class that we are working on. And then you see printing in parent, user, and printing in child. Super. So you understand now what is happening? That one of the method of accessing the parent method inside a method that has hidden the definition of that one. One of the way of accessing that is that we will just mention this base dot print function. So base keyword, remember base keyword, you see when I take my cursor over that, it is showing that it is basically the user class, the base class. So base dot print means go and access that function from that one, right? So this is one way of accessing that base function. That base function will be accessed by using our like this base keyword. So now you see that both of the methods are being accessed. Now base dot print is accessing the print of our parent class user, and this console and this by itself, this void print is basically being accessed by itself in that way. Got everyone? So basically this is one of the way of accessing the base print function. Now what are the other ways of accessing that? So if I just make it a comment, I'm just making a comment. What are the other ways of accessing that same that same method, and how can I access that? So now there is another method of accessing that particular one. If I come here, okay, so let's talk about the other method first. So this was the definition. Now you see, so there's another method of accessing the child class, the parent class method, and that method is that we can define, and this is very important. This was the part of the discussion that we want. What we can do is that we can define the reference variable of parent class and initialize it with the object of the child class. What does that mean? I can just define over here a user. You see here, user sub-object. What is the user? Remember, user is the parent class. User is our parent class. If you come here, you see here, user is our parent class, the main class, which is just being used to instantiate the others. Now, what we can do is that I can define a reference variable of the parent class and assign it an object of the child class. Yes, exactly. Polymorphic reference, whatever you call it. So we are saying that what we are doing, that parent class is being assigned an object of child class. Now, we should be very clear about this over here. It means, and why we are able to do that? Because we know that super, which is child class, super, which is child, right, has all the features of parent. Does that make sense to everyone? Because super class, which is again in child our case, it is child class and it is all the features of parent. So one good way of accessing, and we'll be using this concept every now and then. We'll be just using this concept in more and more topics to follow. So first of all, just try to understand. I have used now what I have done is that I have used the parent class and the reference of parent class, right? And I have assigned it the object of the child class. Okay, a question, not from you, Abhinav. I just wanted to know. Can I do something like this as well? Super and sub obj1 1 equal to new user. Of course, this will show me the error over here, but I cannot do something like this, the opposite of this one. Why I cannot do that? Can anyone answer other than Abhinav? Abhinav, I hope you know the concept. I can, so what I've done, the parent reference variable being assigned child object, allowed, but child object assign a parent object, object reference, assign a parent object is not allowed. Why? Yes, anyone? Can anyone just answer that maybe in the chat window, one liner? What do you think? Why this is not allowed? On one hand, we are saying that we can create a reference object, reference variable of a parent object and assign it the child object, right? Creating a child object. So new, new always creates the object. So we are creating a child object and assigning it to the parent or reference object. But we cannot do something like this. Why? What is the reason behind that? So reason is written over here as well. So all the features, so child always has all the features of the parent user. So it means that if you are creating the object of a child class, it can be assigned to the reference variable of the parent class. Why? Because this child has all the features of this parent. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm waiting for the response. Okay. In opposite to that, if you go opposite to that, I am saying that create an object of parent class and assign it to the reference of the child class. It is not allowed. And why it is not allowed? You see here, it said cannot implicitly convert, and it's saying that you are trying to convert something, but we are not trying to convert. What we are saying is that a parent class object cannot be assigned to the child reference variable. Why? Because parent does not have anything that parent does not adopt anything from child. So this is a real world scenario as well. Child does not, parent cannot have any, all the features of the child. And you remember, we have seen that whatever is in this parent, this user class, is all accessible in our child class. But my question again, can I access this age or this super whatever method that it has, get age method, in my parent class? Can I access that, Nivi or Sarita? Can I access this, this get age method from my child class into the parent class somewhere? No. Why? Because parent class does not. So again, remember, this is one good way of another way of accessing our parent class. Now you see what happens. Control X. I'm just trying to. So what I've done, I was telling you that what are the different ways of accessing the parent method. Now, remember, I have created a parent object, like parent reference variable, and assign it the child object. Is that right? Now you run that. See what comes up. So you see which method is called here for the print. Can anyone tell me which method is called here? The parent one, the child one. It's mentioned over here. Yes, which print method has been called here? Parent one. And now you see here, this is not the expected behavior over here. What does that mean? When I am creating the object of this class, the object created was the child class object. But the method that has been called and the reference variable was the parent. So the method has been called is being accessed from the parent class. Is that right? Which is not something we want over here. I want to access the print, for example. So again, this is the method of accessing the parent method over here. Now what I want is that I want you to understand that I don't want to access this one over here. Rather, I want whenever when I say print, I want to access the print of the child method. So again, the first method that we used was we used the base keyword over here. I just commented that out. So if you use a base like base.print, it will just access the base method, right? And also, of course, because this print is method is called, it will access all those things as well here. But now the other method is that you create the reference variable of parent and assign an object of child. So when you just run that, you will always get the parent method over here, not the child method. Does that make sense to everyone? Because now I'll be just building upon that, and I have just collected all these in the PowerPoint slide. Does that make sense? So what you have to remember from here, a parent reference object, a parent reference variable can accommodate an object of the child class, but a child reference object cannot accommodate the object of the parent class, and we have seen why. Got everyone? This is something that you have to take away from here, and then I will just discuss some important aspect. Reference variable of parent, that's what we have discussed. We can define a reference variable of parent class by providing it object reference of child class, like something like that. We have done that. User object is equal to new super. So here parent user object reference is being getting the object of child class, right? And we cannot do that. We have just discussed that super obj is equal to new user is not allowed. Why? Because user is a parent class and parent does not adopt anything from the child. Now, if we use parent reference variable with child object, we have demoed it. So if we are using something like this one line, and we have basically done what? The method which is called is the parent method. Is that clear? Even though we are creating the object of what? The child class. But the method that we are accessing. So remember this, we'll discuss it in today's class. So just remember this, as I said, I will be just using that typically over there. So if you see here, and again, if you do something like that, user sub objects new super, but we have done, and super.print. So parent constructor is called, parent method is called, not constructor. Parent method is called in this, we are talking about this child parent method. Now this is method ID. We hide parent method sometime by redefining the same method in child class, accessing the parent method by using base keyword. So as I told you that we can access this base method by using one of the method was what was that? Base.getName or base.method. But I have typically done over there, right? And the other method. So this is the second method. The second method we have discussed that what we can do is that we can create a parent method and then we can just create. Now the third method or another method of doing that, if you see here, super obj equal to new super. Now we are going in the same sequence. We have just created a reference variable of child class, and we are creating an object of child class as well. And very obviously, of course, we know now if I call print method here, which print method will be called? Anyone? Which print will be called? The child one or the parent one? Here. Parent one. Anyone else? The child one, the super one. Yes, the child one. Why? Because you know that we have just created the super class. So we are not using the reference variable of parent. Rather, we are using the reference variable of child and the object of child. Let's quickly run that and see that, and then I'll tell you that how we can do that. You see, parent printing in child super class. So it's basically in the child class, right? So child class printing, and it's a very obvious thing, right? So the other way of accessing that is, like, again, we have discussed two ways. One way was the use base method, base.print, the base keyword. And the second way is by using the reference variable of the parent class, and then we can access that one. And the third method of accessing it is casting this object. Casting this object. Now, what does that mean? Let me show you. Can we also use super as a keyword to access the insider? Okay. Yes. So Abhinav, so if you are asking about the super, in Java, when we are accessing the parent methods or accessing the parent methods, Java basically uses the keyword super, right? And if you want to just see here, and let me just give you a quick reference, and sub obj dot print. So now what you are saying is that this one. See here, the Java method of this using this one. So if you use this one, look, it is not recognizing this super. Super does not exist, and check that. Okay, so you see here. So again, in Java, you have got that super keyword, but here you cannot use that one. You got the answer? Was privately asking? Yeah. So this super is not available here. Rather, we have got this base keyword over here that we can use. Let me just make it to base so that later on we can recognize it. Okay, right. So now, you people understanding what I'm doing? You see, casting of object. This is another very important concept, and I'll discuss it. Now, what is happening? Which method should be called here? Now we have casted it. Which method should be called over here? Even though it's a class, it's an object of the child class, but what we are using, we are casting it to the user. So now what will happen? You see that which print method will be called over here. You see printing in parent, right? And before that, when I did not cast it, of course, it was accessing what? The child method. You understand? So these are the three methods of accessing. So you know how to access the hidden method. So basically, this method is called the hidden method. And you know why it is the hidden method? We already knew that we had already hidden that, but there is a new concept. And again, this is against Java as well. Those who are familiar with Java, we do not use this new keyword. But here, this new keyword is telling us that we have hidden that method. Even though if I do not use this new, it does not hinder like in running my program, but it just gives me this warning type of thing that it says that it has to be a hidden. If it has to be a hidden method, and if you want to use this method, you should use the new keyword. And now we'll talk about that. What are the other ways of accessing that? So now everyone understands that this is one another method. This is the other method, and this one. So like I can call it third method, right? And this one is the second method. So I'm just mentioning it over here so that in the notes you have got that second method, and the other is again we have used this base method. So I can call it first method of accessing parent method, right? Parent function, just right? So this is the first method. So we have got discussed these three methods of accessing that. So please bear in mind, and we'll talk about that. So here we have just taken this different example of get name, new get name. So this get name is handling, or it's basically so you can access. One way of accessing is base.get name, right? The same way that we have talked about. The other way is converting this admin or whatever object that you have, converting that into the parent object. This was the second method. And what is the third method? Anyone? Because this slide does only have two methods. So what is the second method? It is creating a parent or a reference variable and assigning it a child object. This one. You remember user sub obj is equal to new super. Everyone got it? Because now I'm about to start something interesting. No response. Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Now we are talking about the polymorphism and overriding of methods. The usual way of overriding of methods. What is the overriding of methods over here? How we can do that? So polymorphism. So polymorphism, many, poly means many and morphic means many shapes. So same name with multiple shapes we talk about, and that is called, we usually called as a polymorphic behavior or polymorphism, when you can have multiple shapes of that one. It allows to perform single action in different ways. We'll be doing a single action by using the multiple ways and different ways over there. Now there is an example, and we'll just take this example maybe, or maybe we can just take any other example. Let's take this example first, and then we'll just talk about that what we can just usually do. Right. So let's have this example and run that. So now I am just doing what? I am just defining that one. Okay, so what I'll do is that I will just use these same classes. I won't go to that one. Just making up a comment so to save our time. Now you see here there is another method of how to define a method and how to just override that method. Typically speaking, when we do the overriding of methods, what we do is that we use two reserved words. Let me just show you over there, and then I'll show you the example. First, so if you see here that we have virtual keyword with the parent and overrides with the child method. So what we do is that when we are defining a method, we just say that it's a virtual method, right? And then we have to, we are just defining or redefining that method into our class, into the child class. But we say that we just use the override method of that particular thing. So what typically it does mean that we are talking about a method. Print user is basically a method that is overriding all the features of that virtual method that we have defined in our parent class, right? So this is something that we have to do. Now if we come here, let's talk about this print method and let's define it virtual void print, right? And now what we want to do is that I will just do what I will override. So I'm not hiding it. Now I'm doing proper overriding, right? Override void print. Is that right? Now let's talk about this one and come over here. And I'm doing that same thing. User sub obj, right? Not sub obj. I'm making a super object, right? Super obj and referencing it. What? The same thing that I was talking about. Now referencing it to a child class object, right? So I've created again the same concept that we used in this scenario, that we have got an object reference of the parent and we are defining it or assigning it the object of basically the child class. And now, yes, let's talk about this. Sub obj dot print. Right. So what do you people say? What should be the answer over what should be the which method will be running over here? Anyone? Just have a wild guesses and then we'll just talk about why. What is the change now? The change is that now I have defined this function, this method as virtual, and now I have defined this method as override method, right? And I'm not calling this base.print over here. So which method will be called in this scenario? The child method. Anyone? The child method. Okay. The child method. Let's run that. Let's see. So you see, so people have guessed that. You see printing in child. So now the child method is accessed. And before that, if you remember, before using this override and all those things, if I just remove this override, if I just remove this virtual from here. So yes, parent was calling. Of course, now it will be calling parent method. So please bear in mind, now this is the method of accessing, the method overriding. And through this method, what we can do is that we can just override our method. So now you see this example. I'll show you the example which I was showing you. I'll just rerun that example and show you over here. So I've used a different example over here. So you see here we have just defined there is a function, and if you are just calling, and there are three childs being created, and we have just created an array of those values, and we are accessing for each user. We are calling the print user function, and for every class it will be accessing the parent one. Why? Because there is no implementation even over here, and it will be just. So you see here what we are doing. If you see that user is our parent class, users is equal to new user 3. We have just created an array of the objects, right? And now what we are doing, that at the first value we are defining the super. Super is what? The first child of it. All of them are the child of user. They are basically all siblings. They are not the hierarchy or multi-level inheritance. Rather they are what? They are all child of user. So user 0 new super, this class method. Users 1 new admin, second class. Users 2 new entry, third class. So we have just defined these three classes object and stored them on the reference of what? Parent, reference of parent. And you remember, we have talked about if you do something like that, what will happen is that it will just call the method from the parent. Got everyone? Now if I come over here and if I just if I even define those print user method in this one, I define this print user over here, both of them have the print user, but still You remember that if you have not used that virtual and override, it will always call which method? Will it call this admin user or will it call this parent? No, it will again call its parent method. Why? Because there is no virtual and no is used. Now, if you do something like that, if you define the parent method as virtual and the child method as this override, now what will happen is that child method will be called in this array of the values. Is that right? Is that clear? So now let's quickly do that, and we'll just with these classes we can just try that out, and we'll just quickly see that. So again, first of all, I'm just converting that print method again to a simple method hiding rather than method overriding, because I am not using this virtual and that. So now we come here, and we have got another child class over here. You see, I've created an admin child class as well over here. So now let's do something interesting. Make it a comment. Right. So what I'll do is that I'll create a user, and this is an array now. Right. Users equal to new user, and now here I want to create just two because I have got two classes only, like one of the child only, or maybe it's the child of the super. So let's make it a child of user again. Right. So I'm just creating all of them as the method. Okay, and then just run that. So users of 0 equal to new, and what is my first child class? Super. Right. Assigning super object, and users of 1 equal to new, not super. What is that? Admin. I've just called that admin. So you see here what I've done. I've defined these both of them, and now it has got a print method, and I do not have a print method in this one, so I'll just call this print define this print over here as well. Right. So I've defined printing in child admin. Right. So this is admin class. So we have got this one. Right. Now, if you remember, we have talked about a for each loop. If you just run for each user in users. So for each user, what you do? Okay, there's reference u in users, right? So what you do is that we want to run each one of the function. So u dot print. So the scenario is that we have got two child classes of same user class. This is also user's parent child. This is also child. Now I have defined an array of users, and now I've allocated this super and admin inside that one, and now I'm calling this one. Let's run this one. And again, bear in mind there is no virtual override being used. So if you see here, user class constructor, child class constructor, derived, user class constructor parent, I am child of super. So basically these are four constructors that are running. Of course, they will run. But what is important about that? Printing in parent super, printing in parent super. Do you understand that always print of parent is being called for both of the objects? Understand? Now, if I want to call them, and the right way of doing that is what? Go to the print of this parent and define it virtual, right? And go to the definitions of all these one, and you say override, right? This one and as well as this one. Now run this one. All right. So you see here, now printing in child super, printing in child admin. So now our both child methods have been accessed. They are being called. Understand everyone what is going on over here? That this, by using this override and virtual keyword, what we can do is that we can just define our methods in a way that they will be overridden, and now it is basically accessing the print method of its of its child class, because it has overridden the parent method. Is that clear to everyone? Now let's move forward and show you something interesting. So we have just done that using virtual and this one. So polymorphism, what is that? So it always it allows us to invoke child class methods by using parent reference variable, and we discussed that in the beginning. That remember that we have that parent class object reference variable, and we can just use the child class method. At runtime, it decides which method to run. This is very important. Runtime of polymorphism basically decides on the runtime which method has to run. So you remember, if I just take out these override from these methods, right? If I just take out override from this method, for example, and take out the virtual from that method, what will happen is that it will at the runtime decide it does not have to run the print of the child method. Rather, I have to run the print of the parent method, the user method. But if you have defined something like this, polymorphism at runtime will decide that which method to run. Is that right? Which method I will access it. If you have hidden a base class function by providing new to derived class method, a base reference is accessing derived object, then base class function is called otherwise. So we have just discussed that. This is the same that we have been talking. Now, method overloading. This is another concept. We were talking about till this point, we were talking about method overriding, right? So these are the two concepts. Overloading is another concept related to polymorphism. Both of these concepts are more or less related to polymorphism, but method overriding also comes under the inheritance also, because we need to do inheritance to do the method overriding. But anyhow, overloading, using the same name within a class but different signature. Can anyone tell me what is the signature of the method? What is the signature of the method? Okay, so I need answer from other as well. Signature of the method. What is the signature? Number and type of parameters. Okay. Anyone else? Parameters. Okay. Signature. Someone says parameters. Okay. Someone says that number and types of parameters. Anyone else? Signature of the method. I know who raised hand. They know. Data type. Okay. That's good. Anyone else? Now, yes. So signature is basically if ABC is a method, and if I say int, and rather, let's write these two methods. So I've defined these two methods. You see here, like I've just declared these two methods, ABC int, XYZ float int. What is the signature? Please remember, and of course, some people know the concept, and remember, the name and the parameter list of the function or the method are called the signature of the method. These are called signature. Name and the parameter type. Please remember that return type is not included in signature. So when you talk about a signature, typically you say that a signature is combination of name of the function as well as the parameter type, parameters, right? So if I ask you what is this method, you'll say ABC method, which can accept two integers. You say XYZ method that can accept a float and an integer, right? So, but when I say, for example, in this same scenario, if I say void ABC int, comma, int, comma, int. So now the signature of this method, if I ask you what is the signature, it says that ABC can accept three integers. Now, if in a programming language, you can define same like this, you have defined two methods with the same name, but different parameters. This concept is called what? Method overloading. But remember, never get confused in that one, which I told you. If I ask you void ABC int float, is that allowed? We are talking about this current scenario. We are just talking about this current scenario. Oh, sorry. So let me just make it again. Void ABC int, comma, int. Right? So what is the method overloading? What I was saying, ABC int, comma, float, void ABC and float, comma, int. and int ABC float comma int. Now, according to my concept, are these the right methods or there is something wrong? Is it correct or no? Yes or no? Like again, I'm talking about a single program and I'm just defining these methods like this. ABC which can accept two integers, ABC that can accept integer and float, ABC that can accept a float and integer, ABC that can accept a float and integer and returns integer. Is this method overloading correct or not? Okay, anyone else? You are right, but again, the right answer is that again, there of course there is something wrong with it. You say it's correct. Govindraj says it's correct. Okay, anyone else? What you people think about this one? Okay, just listen about that. These three are overloaded. This is correct. But what is the difference over here? You see, here I have just used ABC with float and int. Yes, exactly. Not confusing. They are not allowed. Not confusing. They are not allowed. Why? Because the compiler will say that this ABC and this ABC, they are exactly the same methods. Why? Because their signature is same. You see what I was telling, that return type is not included in signature. So if you want to differentiate a function because of its return type, you will not be able to do so. So compiler will produce it generate an error. It will say that ABC float int has already been defined. You cannot redefine it. Is everyone understanding that? Because it's a bit of, and also this will come as a concept. It will come again. But let me just tell you, void ABC int comma int and int ABC int comma int. Now I'm talking to those who have just heard it for the first time. Is it allowed or not? Now, what do you understand with this concept that we have discussed? No, it would be allowed. And why not allowed, Deep? Why not allowed? Because the signature is same for these two methods. So the concept that you have to remember, signature does not include return type. So whenever someone asks you signature, you will say a signature is typically what? The name of the function alongside the list of the parameters that it accepts. This is basically the signature of the function. Got everyone? Now, the only parameters define signature, not return type, as I'm just continuously saying. So we can have many shapes of same method. So I can have many shapes, but of course the parameters should be different. If the parameters are not different in this scenario, for example, this is not the method overloading. Method overloading necessarily need to have different parameters list. We can overload on type of we can overload one type of parameters or on type of parameters also. So we can overload on type of parameters also. What does that mean, type of parameters also? Let me just show you, and we will just see the example as well for this one. So if I say void ABC int x int y, right? And now I define void ABC out int x int y. Does anyone remember what was the out keyword used for? Anyone remembers what was the out keyword for? Yes, can anyone tell me what was the out keyword for? Reference to variable. What does that mean? Can you just explain that? What was the out keyword, if people remember? Used for data type conversion. Oh my god. When we are using this in the function, like in a method parameter list, what was out used for? Exactly, returning values from the function, you remember, and assigning those values in a main function. Returning values, please. I think some people have lost that. So returning values out, getting the return from this function. Yes, exactly. This method will return the value. You're right. So now please bear in mind, if I've done something like that, so int x and int y. So these are two the values which will be accepting as parameter. And here I'm saying this out is it. So it means that it is the right polymorphism or right method overloading. Why? Because here int x is something that will accept the value. Got everyone? And here out is so again, please Please bear in mind, we are not talking about the return type. Here we are talking about returning a variable by using the type, the out type, right? So if you are using that one and this out type, you know, it is coming inside the parameter list. So for that reason, what I'm saying that this is the right polymorphism and we can overload a function on the basis of this out parameter. You got the concept why I'm emphasizing on that one? Because we say that it out will make it an output parameter, and this output parameter we can just, you know, we can do the overloading on the basis of return parameter. Everyone understands, because some people were not remembering what was the out for. Out was used for taking this return from the function, but out coming over here does not make it return type, by the way, because it is returning but it's not the return type. You have to keep in mind, right? So we can do that as well. Now yes, come here. So method over, so this is the method overloading, and we'll talk about that, and I've just given you the example and we'll just talk about that. So getters and setters of the classes, this is very important, and I will just take a quick break because we are reaching the hour. 8:54 it is. So I'll be back at 9:05, right? So break till then. So let's have a break in. So now let's talk about the getters and setters of classes. And what we have to discuss, we are about to discuss some interesting aspect of C# is that we use properties for that. But again, let's talk about some getters and setters first. We use getters and setters functions to access class fields. They can access private fields as well. So, you know, you remember we talked about that there are usually the fields that we keep are the private fields. In today's example also we saw that one of the class was having the private fields. So basically what we do is that we use the getters and setters function to access those class fields. We never leave our class fields open for the world to be accessed. What does that mean? The example today that we discussed. Okay, no, it was not here. I think it was that we discussed over here. So you see here, when we define an object like a field as private, I cannot access this field outside of my class, even by the user object as well. So for example, let me just make it a comment, and I want to just show you. Of course, you know that. So if I create a user obj equal to new user, so I'm just making a simple object of the user class. So you know, if I do obj dot, so you see here, I can find this name over here because name is if you see, name is a public member of this one. But can I access location from here? Of course not. I cannot access location. There is nothing that's called location. Why? Because location was a private member, is a private member. So location cannot be accessed. So you cannot access something like that. Right? So private members are those which cannot be accessed out of the class. But we have talked about that. These private members can be accessed with the functions within the functions inside that class. Right? So now I'm starting a new project, and that will be, I will call that week 6, so that week 5 file will be till this point, and this will not contain so many things. So now let's create a file. So bear in mind, so it will be week 6 CS. So bear in mind that the getters and setters are basically used for So getters and setters are used to access class fields. We never leave our class fields open for the outside world, as I said, and we use basically getters and setters to access those private fields. So this way we can protect our crucial private members from the accidental changes. And why did we want that? We don't want users or outside of our world or outside our class to make accidental changes to our variable. We can do RE checking. regular expression checking by using getters and setters. We can do lots of things by using getters and setters. You can get complete control of the fields by using them, and we can have a complete control over the field. So here is an example. This is a short example, and I'll just like to just use this one. As I said, we are just starting a new program, right? So we have just this one. So now let's define a class, and I have called this an example class, or maybe you can call it whatever, right? So it has a private member string name, right? And I'll just build up upon this one. Public string get name, right? Return name. Return name, right? And public void set name. String value, whatever. Right? And name equal to value. Now you see here. So this is what we have, a class called name as example. I've called it. It has a private member string name. So outside world cannot access this string name. If I have to read this name, I will call its getter function. So what I'm calling this will be called as getter. A getter means a function that will get the value of this name, right? And then we have another function set name, and I'm calling this as setter. What does setter does? Setter basically is used to set up the value of this name. So this name is a private member. I cannot access it from this one. So let's come and try to create its object. Example obj equal to new example, right? Now if I say obj dot name, so I cannot access obj dot name, of course, because it's a private member. What I can access is that set name, right? If I want to set something, and set name will accept a value. So if I pass Alice, and so if I want to, so again, and I want to run the value as well. So if what I'll do, console.writeLine, the name is placeholder. Obj dot, and again, now I cannot access the name directly. Rather, what I can access is the getter. So getter function is what? Get name. So see here, what we are doing on a single screen. So what we are doing, we have defined a class where there is a private member, and we never open this. We never open this to world. For example, we never open this to world. This name variable is not known to the world. Rather, if anyone wants to communicate with my program, if anyone wants to make some changes in this name, if anyone wants to get the value of this name, they will have to contact my public methods. There is one public method that is returning a string. It returns a string, get name, and it returns return name, whatever name is that there. And there is a public method set name, which basically takes a value and sets the value to that one. And now this name, what we are using over here, is all private member of this class. So basically what we do is that for using or for defining our the accessing the fields or hiding the fields from the world and showing what to the world, only showing the getters and setters to the world. Is that right? So this is a usual way of doing the things, that you open up some of the functions, some of the methods, and those methods go outside the world and they interact with that world. By outside the world, what I mean is that basically this is also outside of the world. We're talking about this is also the outside of the world. So if you are talking about that, you will be saying that this. So now if you see that we have just run that one, so this is the class which has a private member and this getter and setter can use. Now in C#, we have got something interesting called properties. Now, what is properties? Let me just, is that introduction? Yes, I think this slide should go before that. So introduction to the properties. We use get and set accesses to implement properties. So what are properties? Properties are basically the same getters and setters that we want to set, but we define them as a property, and that will not only give it a very organized shape, but also it will save a lots of code at times. And I'll say they imitate private properties as public. Actually they are not. So again, what we have defined as private, for example, this is a private member, it will just start behaving, that property will be allowing us to use the private member more or less like the public member. Getting that? Now, so properties can be in different types. Properties can be read and write properties. They can be read only properties. They can be write only properties, or they can be auto implemented properties. Right? So if I ask you here, I can read this name by using this get name, and I can write on this name by using. So we have not used the property typically over here, but here we can read and write both with the name. Understand? We are writing the name, for example, Alice, defining the name, and also what we are doing, we are reading the name. So this is a read write one, but in properties we'll see that how we define read and write properties over there. Right? So now if we want to just make this proper, like the thing that we have created before that, we have just created our program, and if I want to convert that into a property, how I will do that? That is very interesting, and we want to just create that one. So now what I'll do is that I'll do the comment of this one. Right, let's comment it. Now to convert that or to make a property for that one, what we do is that we have to define a public property, of course, because we want to access that outside. But remember that we have got this one like private member over here, right? So string name. Now what we are doing, we are trying to create a public string name, right? Okay. The type example already contains the definition for name. Okay, right. Just for the time being, let's log this one. Okay, right. So now, what I've done that I have defined this one. No, there is no curly braces being needed over here, mind you. Why it is giving? It's basically giving because of here. Now, if I want to set something, I'll just do something like this. Set. Right? If I want to get something, I'll just do a get. Is that right? I can just define a get or a setter, right? Why it is giving this for the get? Okay, right. So this is correct? Like we have been doing what? That we have got this set and get. So now this dot, now this is a property that will be just doing it for us. And what will be happening is that we'll have to just define this one. We have to just define this private string name, right? So now this dot name equal to value. Now you see here what we are saying. We are saying that this property, or maybe I'll have to just rename that one. Name P. I'm just calling it a name property, right? So this dot name equal to, what is that? Value. Now what is this value? I'll just talk about that value. And if this is the getter, what I'll do, return, because it's just giving the message this dot name. Now you see here what we are doing. We have defined a particular field, a private field, and it's the name of the field is this name. We are just defining this name field, and we are defining a property for that one. And that property, just quickly have a look at a few things. I look like I'm missing something. Just hold on a minute. Just hold on a minute. I'll have to open up a program, right one. Just hold. Right. So as I said, that we have just defined a member, private member, right over here. And then what we are doing is that we are just defining over here. And let me tell you something interesting about this one. What is this value? Where this value is coming from? So whenever someone accesses this property, basically the value that has been passed is basically set to this one. So what we are doing, that this property, which we have called as name P, the property, right? Whenever someone will try to access that one, what it will do is that it will set up the value of this dot name. Name means again the private member variable that we have used. Use this one and equal to value. Now, so whenever the value, whenever what we set something, which the value is passed to something called a value. So again, it's a default, you know, you can call it a reserved word or a reserved, you know, area from where we will be just, you know, storing those two values. So now if you see here, and I'll show you this example. So public string name, we are just defining that one. So we are saying set this dot name. So again here, this name is the capital name, like, you know, defining the property, and this with a small name. So this is what I wanted to just, you know, do. So what I'll do is that I'm defining this with a small name so that again, you know, imitate the right behavior. And let's call it this name, right? And this dot name. Now you see here. So I was just, you know, confusing that one. So string name, we have just defined a private word and private variable, and now defining a property for that. So whenever you see, whenever someone will be calling this name property and passing a value, that value will come as by itself. It will have this name as value. What does that mean? I can set this dot name. This dot name means the private member equal to the value which has been passed to. Right? So, and same way, if I'll be just getting that value, it will just return this dot name. So if you see here, let's run this one again. Let's run this one and let's check this one. So you see here, now I don't need a getter or a setter method over here. Rather, what I do is that I've just defined one property with the capital N, capital name, and I'm setting the name of this variable. So again, this is a simple variable, private variable, but this property is something open to the world. Now, if I come over here, you see that it's of course giving that these functions are not available. So now I do not want to access something like that. Rather, what I'll do is that I'll do name equal to John, right? So obj.name is equal to John. And now, how I am accessing this property? Just like a simple variable. Do you see that? And in the same way, I can access this name to print the values as well. Obj.name. You see here? So what is that? I have defined a property. Let me just close this one. I have defined a property. His name is name. And what I've done is that I have just defined a setter, like set value over here, set accessor. This is called set accessor. This is called set accessor. And this is called get accessor. So I've defined a set accessor, and I said that whenever this property is called, whatever value has been provided to it, we just do what? We just provide this with that value, right? Now, so if you see here that we can just set up something like this. Now just do it for one more thing. For example, private and int age. I want to define an age for someone as well. So if I want to set up a property, I just want to give you this reference. So what will be happening? Public, and what is the data type of age? Int. So I'll just define this int age. Defining that one. So now, if I do set, I will be just, doing what? I want to set the value of this age, whatever value has been provided to it. So, what I've told you, that the value that comes inside is basically the value. So this dot age equal to value. We have set up that value. Is that right? And now if I define a get accessor for that, so get accessor will do what? It will just return us this dot age. Is that right? And if I want to use this one, You know, here I've used this one typically. Now, if I want to use the other property, obj dot age equal to 21, for example, and now I can just, you know, copy and paste this one. So you can just print out the obj age over here. You see, so both of these will be access to the properties. You see, name is John, and the name is not name is here will be ages, but anyhow. So you see here what is happening. So see here, a property typically does what? A property is defined as a public reference, of course. You know why? Because this will be accessed from outside of the world. Now, what it has saved from us, you see that before defining this property, we had to define the get method and the set method separately. And you remember in the beginning when we were discussing this getters and setters, if I just go back a bit. So this getters and setters can use the, I told you that it can be used for doing some regular expression checking or anything at all. You can just always do that. And that is the same thing that you can always do over here, that you can just implement any of the logics if you want to implement any of the logics over here. You want to return a typical name, you want to store a typical name, you can all do this in these properties. Is that right? So a property typically does what? It is open to the world, outside world, and its setter is used for setting values, its getter is used for the getting values. Right? So if I come back over here and if I show you, so I told you that there are different types of property, we'll talk about that. But first of all, this value is what? This value is basically what has been passed over here, that will become the value. So you can access that by using the value. Right? So getting that? Now the other one, if I come over here. So for read-only field, this should be field, not filed. So read-only field, what we do is that we will just, you know, define, we can use read-only property. So read-only field, but what does that mean? There is some field that you want only user to access, but not change that. For example, let's come here and let's define a, for example, if I say private and for example, int salary equal to something, right? So what I've done, I've defined a variable private and I don't want anyone to set this salary. So I will define its property like this: public int salary. Now, I don't want to set it from the outside world. So what I'll do is that I'll just set up its getter. You understand? So I'll do return this dot salary. Now, no setter being used. Are you people getting that? So now if I use this one and I want to access this salary, obj dot salary. You see obj dot salary, and if I do something like this, is it allowed? No. And why it is not allowed? Anyone? Why I cannot do this obj dot salary? Can anyone tell me the technical reason of why I cannot access this salary over here? Yes. Why I cannot set this salary over here? Exactly. The setter is not there. Yes, you are right. And someone has mentioned that. So it is basically a read only. Its salary is a read only property. It's not a writable property. That's very good. Thank you very much. So it means that I cannot do that. Rather, if I want to just access this salary, I can access this salary over here. If I do something like that, salary, I can just access the salary. Why? Because I just mentioned that as a read only one. But I can read that. So why? Because I have just defined what? The getter inside that. Only get is there. It is only read only. It cannot. So what is this age property? Is it read only or read write both? Do you see? It is read write both. Is that right? You might have a property there you want just to set that, and you don't want to get that anything back from that salary, for example. So for example, if I say something like set, and I say that this dot salary equal to value, So, I've told you that value is basically what? Value is the value that has been passed. Now this has become what? This is now not read only, rather now it has become only write only property. So it means that I can never read this salary from this one, but what I can do is that I can just, make this one, so I can set the salary over here. Obj.salary equal to whatever. Now I am able to set that, but of course I cannot read that. Is that right? So now, what is this property? Write only. What is this? What was this property before when I was using only get? It was read only. So write only and read only properties. So we talked about these type of properties. The read only, read write properties, the first one that we talked about. Then we have read only properties. We have seen that if you are using only getter inside that, it's a read only property. And if you are just using the setter method, it will be write only property. Right? So now these are the three types. Now we'll talk about the fourth one, auto implemented properties, and we'll see what will happen. So use only get accessor for the read only one. No set accessor. So set accessor will not be used. So it becomes read only. And you can just do the slash and do for the set accessor. So if you are doing something like that using set accessor, and if I say no get accessor, so this is just the opposite of what we are talking about. So it becomes read only. So it becomes, what should I write? Write only. So I have given both of them. So read only and write only, both of them have been covered. So auto implemented. This is very interesting. Auto implemented. So writing for all properties. So even this code is considered as a bit more one, because I have to write the setter and getter for everything. So rather than doing that, not defining a field and just defining a property. You see here, public. For example, we can take anything. String designation, for example. I'm just saying string designation, right? So I'm defining a property. So now if I do set and get, you see here, get and set. So what happens now? Bear in mind, please bear in mind, we have not defined this designation over here. In this way, the property which is being defined, it is called an auto, what you call it? Auto implemented property, right? So this will be called as auto implemented. What does that mean? If someone sets up, if someone wants to set the designation, for example, if I come here and say obj dot the designation, you find this designation over here. Oh, usually we use the capital letter, so that's why, for the property, right? So that we can just understand that this. So obj dot destination. So you see here we have designation. Sorry, not destination. Designation equal to ABC, whatever. Now I can set the designation over here, and as well as, do you people understand? I can access that one as well. So Control V, and I will write the designation is 0 and obj dot designation. Now what is happening? You see here that it will say that designation is ABC, because I have defined that. So you see how much code is now saved over here. So all those properties which do not have any specific logic. What do you mean by specific logic? For example, you can basically set up a logic. For example, you can say here, if salary, or maybe this dot salary, right? Or maybe if value is greater than 10,000, then set the value, right? So for example, you can implement this logic as well over here. You say that if value is greater than, so value, what does that mean? The value which user is providing, if it is greater than 10,000, then you set this one, right? Or maybe, so else what you can do? So you say this dot salary equal to value plus value. You see here what I'm doing. If salary is greater than 10,000, so you just store that one. And if that salary is not greater than 10,000, of course, it is less than 10,000, you do what? You just add two values. Like, the salary should be stored in something like this. So let's see over here what salary I'm providing. I'm providing 2,000. So what should happen over here? It will just check that because it's less than that one. So it will just store what? It should store the 4,000 in that cell. And since I'm not getting over here, so let's put a get over here as well. Get accessor, right? And return this dot salary, right? So I'm just printing that as well, so that to know what is going on. So now here, let's write down a console dot write line. The salary is 0 and obj dot salary. Now I am reading that one. So see what salary comes up. I'm just telling you the difference, that what is the difference between that. So you see salary is coming as what? 4,000. And if I assign this 20,000, for example, so what should be the salary now? Anyone? What will be the output now for the salary? I have set up this 20,000, right? So 20,000. And why this is, of course, because it has. So now what I'm trying to say here, listen, because you are implementing some of the logic on this salary, you cannot make it as an auto implemented one. You understand what I'm saying? Auto implemented salary is one that does not implement any of the logic behind. That does not comes up with the logic, any logic. You have just values, and you have to just, you are just setter, and you are just using the setter and getter accessor, set and get accessor. So you do not want to use any logic behind that. But here you see in the salary, we are using a logic over here. Right? So it's basically when setting the logic. You can do the same for this age one. That if age is greater than 18, then you set up. Otherwise, you do not set it up. Maybe you set it something else, something like that. You're getting that? So auto implemented property, you don't even need to define a variable over here. Like, we are not defining a private variable. So what compiler does, a very interesting point. When I create this designation, when I access this designation, compiler automatically create designation private variable in this one. Do you understand that what I'm saying? Because designation has not been a variable. This has not been defined as a variable. So if it has been defined as a variable, and I access this one because there is a property of this one. So when I do that, compiler intelligently does what? It goes and create a designation private variable over here. Are you people getting that? So it means technically there is an interesting concept. Technically it means that I can, for example, I'm not implementing any logic on these two. So if I close them, what I've done, I've just not defined these two variables. Bear in mind, if I do that, and if you see here, oh, okay. So why? Because all right, and now I don't want this anything, because now I'm implementing that auto implementing property. So if you just do that, set and get, right? Again, you need to remove this logic. Why? Because this is using that one. So now if I do that, set and get, you see, I don't even need to define now name and age over here. Any specific order to define set and get? Monad, usually there is no no specific method, but usually a general concept is, if there is a set and get, we usually do the set before. But again, it might not be the hindrance or a problem. So you see here, I'm not defining the name, but still it works. It is accessing this name, it is accessing the age. And why it is accessing those ones? Why? Because these are the properties which are setter and getter have them. Understood, everyone? Monak, you got the concept? This one, the getter and setter auto implemented property. That's very good. So these are called auto implemented property if you just do not define that. So again, but remember, and this is very important, that you have to just keep in mind that reduces the amount of code, and the compiler will create private anonymous field. That field will be called as private anonymous field that can only be accessed through properties get and set accessor. So isn't that interesting? So again, as I said, this will be creating an anonymous. So here also, it will be creating some anonymous field because this is the property. So it will just create an anonymous field over here and it will access that. Why I cannot do this with this salary? Why? Because I've implemented some of the logic inside that. And a getter and setter is typically used for that thing, that whenever you want to implement a typical logic into that one, you always do what? You always just define that variable in that way. Right? So this is basically the explanation for that specific thing. Understood, everyone? Right. So if you understand, now we are just about to start. So this is something interesting. Yes, this was remaining. Object initializers. There is something that we want to just save ourselves from more and more code. You know, we can use the object initializers in C#. Save more code lines. So we'll be saving more code lines. So, you know, we are continuously trying to save ourselves from writing the long lines of code. So for that, so those who have worked in JavaScript must be familiar with it. So those who have worked in JavaScript, they will be familiar what I am talking about. Let me just show you what does that mean. So you see here, we are just defining an object and then storing those values. So if I just, take out these lines from here and just keep them. So you see, defining a variable and then setting up the value, defining an object and then setting up the property, defining an object and set up the property. Now there is another way of accessing this one. Example obj1 or 2 equal to new example. And now don't put up terminator, rather put up curly braces. Oh no, this is not mandatory. This is not mandatory. Why we are doing that? You are asking about the name. It can be anything at all. You see. So for example, you are talking about this one. So for example, if you talk about that this salary was not salary, rather I can call it my salary, whatever. So for example, I'm changing the name. So if you are doing this my salary, of course you'll have to change this over here, but that does not hinder or does not mean that you have to make this one as a salary. You can name it anything. Aditi, you got the point? So property can be of anything, but the real thing is that what you are accessing over here inside the private window. Right. So now I've just changed that one. Okay, this is not salary, my salary. Right. So right. So what I was doing? Yes. So defining an object. It is called object initializer. Now, how many properties are there? There is a property called name. Name is equal to Bob. Right. So those, again, as I said, those who have worked in JavaScript, they know about this. Now, there is another field called age. Age equal to 22. Sorry, comma. There will be no terminator. There will be commas. Right. There is another property, salary, which is I have done set and get both. Right. So salary equal to. Let's do it smaller. Again, we want to check that what will be the value come. You will know the power of that one. Okay, and then we have designation, which is not defined, but I can just use that designation as well. Designation is manager. Right, and remember to put a terminator over here, please. Why? Because this is now this has more or less become a statement now, so I have to just done that. Right, now just console.write line. Write line, and let's put 0, 1, 2, and 3. Right, I want to just print them all. Right, so obj2 dot name. Right, no, not obj1, obj2. obj2 dot age. obj2. I'm hoping that I've just maintained them, all of them read and write only. Read and write properties. Dot salary. If there will be a problem, it will just show us. obj2 dot designation. Now let's talk about this, and let me make it a comment so that we do not see this output. So I've defined a object initializer and I have set up the salary 2000. You know the salary would be what? Anyone? The salary would, because we have implemented a small little logic over there. 4000, of course, because that is. So you know the power of that the properties that we have got. So you see here, I have just not. So Bob 22, 4,000 and manager, because I have not put any spaces in between them. So they are just coming without anything. So let's just put 2 or 3 spaces between them and we can see them separately. So you see here, Bob 22, 4,000 and manager and 4,000. So you know the power of the power of that set property or the something like that. You see that you can implement a typical logic inside that, and that property will be going there and will be accessing that logic. Everyone understand that? I need some responses in the chat window, because then I'll be just taking a quick break, and after that we'll just start a new topic, which is all important. I want to start that fresh. Let me see if something remaining. Yeah, so I will start a new topic. So everyone is good with it? So now let's, we are again reaching to the hour. Let's take a quick break of 10 minutes and then we'll be back at, this is 9:53. So object initializers is a very interesting way of initializing the objects in this syntax. You see, I have just taken another example. So you can just define the variables or the properties that you have. Just define those properties and set up a value with the comma separation. And by the end of that, there is a terminator, and this will just initialize the object by itself. So you know, this is always better than, you remember, just defining an object and then storing value for each property. So we are saving more and more and more code. So you see, that purpose always is that we need to have, like, we are coming up with those innovative way where we can just, you know, lessen down as much as possible code, as code is possible, right? So that is something that we have discussed. Now the next topic that we want to start is interfaces, that I'll discuss. I'll just touch on them because I have you know, you remember I told you about the lab 2 session. So lab 2 questions are here. I'll just share with them. So rest of the part I'll just discuss about the interfaces, and then I'll just give you those questions, and you'll be implementing or doing that, right? So interfaces, one of the very important aspect of programming is interfaces. We'll talk about interfaces today. They are like classes, but with no implementations. Interestingly, we'll just go through this theory and then I'll just give you example. They are like classes. Interfaces are like classes, but no implementation. So we say there is no implementation of these interfaces. What does that mean? We'll see that. Their members are public by default. This is the feature for them, that whenever you define a member, by default, that member will be a public. No fields allowed in interface. On one side, we are saying they are like classes, but on the other side, we are saying because classes do have fields as well. You know, fields means the variables. So interfaces cannot have fields directly. You know, the variables you call it. They are more like classes, as we said, but no implementation. One of the difference, that there will be no implementation of the methods, and also we are saying that there are no fields being allowed for our for our interface. If a class or a struct inherits from an interface, it must provide implementation. Implementation for all interface members. So if a class or a struct inherits from interface, now class inherits from interface, that is understandable. Struct inheriting from interface. Now please correct me if I'm wrong. Did we discuss a little about structs in the beginning of the session? We have talked about structs in a detail, in a lesser detail or some detail. Can anyone just confirm that in the chat window? Yes, we have talked about the struct. I'll talk maybe more about the structs in our tomorrow's session, because there are some important aspects that I want to discuss over here. So anyhow, if a class, so right now for the time being, I'm not saying the struct is inheriting, but we are saying class inheriting. So when a class inherits from an interface, it has to provide all the implementation of interface mode. We say that there is no implementation of the members of the struct interface. If a class is inheriting from it, like becoming a child of that one, we need to implement all those methods which were defined in the abstract class interface. Sorry, not abstract class. We'll talk about abstract classes as well. So multiple level allowed with interfaces, but not with classes. You remember multiple level? Other than does anyone remember multiple level is allowed in interfaces but not in classes? Does anyone remember what was multiple level Inheritance in classes, we discussed last week maybe. Multiple level inheritance or multiple inheritance. Anyone? Does anyone remember that multiple inheritance? Anyone remembers that? You remember we talked about inheritance in some way. Okay, okay. Okay. So yes, means, so Vinny, can you answer that? Multiple level, what is that? Vinny, can you answer that? Again, yes means you know the concept, but now I want you to just, reply that. Yes, multiple level I'm asking. Yes, multiple level I'm asking. Yes, correct. So which one is multiple level? Out of these two, A and B. You remember we talked about B. No two classes can combine together to create, yes, exactly, inheriting the feature from the multiple classes. So no two classes can combine to create a new child. It is not allowed in C#. I told you that it's not even allowed in Java, but C++ allows this type of inheritance. So, but here this is called multi-level inheritance, which is very much allowed. When you talk about interfaces, we'll see, we say that they are more like classes. So if we are using interfaces, we can have multiple level inheritance, multiple interfaces combining into one class. So this can be I1, this can be I2, and I can use both of them in my new class. I can inherit from both of them. So remember this slide concepts. Remember this slide concept. In interfaces, you can inherit from two interfaces in one of the class. You can inherit from both of them. Got everyone? This is the concept that you need to remember. But if I ask you that, is it available in the classes as well? So you say, no, classes do not allow us. But interfaces do allow us. Is that right? Everyone understanding that? And I'll give you the example. We cannot instantiate interfaces. We cannot create object of instant interfaces, but interface reference variable can point to a derived class object. That is something that I'll show you as an example, and I'll just share that example with you. So let me just remove that drawing. So you see here, we can just define. Let's go to the program and try to run that. So this is our program. Now, as we have defined a class example, I can just define. Let me just close rest everything. Class program, just keep it open and close this example. Rather, I just make it a comment again so that we have got clean things. Now, I can define an interface by using this interface keyword. Interface, and usually interface name starts with this I. So I employee. I'm just creating an interface with I employee. Now, I want to define a function into it, void print, and let's give it a body. Now you see here what I've done. I have defined an interface, and here I am defining a print method. So please bear in mind that in an interface, we never define a function's body. We never define the body of the function. Rather, we do what? We always only define the name of the function. No implementation is given. Is that clear? So remember that in an interface, you do not define you not define the body of any of the function. Rather, you just define their name and you just define their prototype without implementation. So some of you might be thinking that what is the use of it? There is a very important use of it, but just keep in mind that a function is not implemented in the interface. Rather, we implement it in wherever we are just accessing that. Right? So for example, I've defined this interface and I have defined two methods. For example, void display. So just for nothing, I'm just defining two methods. Now I'm creating a class employee, and I am, extending it from my iEmployee. Right? So my employee. Yeah. So you say that it's giving some error. So you see what does it say? Read the error. Employee does not implement interface method iEmployee.print and iEmployee.display. You understand what does that mean? Because we say that interface do not provide the implementation of method. If you see my slide, now it will start making sense to you. It will start making sense to you. Now, if I show you in my slide, what it does, it say that if a class or a struct inherits from an interface, it must provide implementation for all interface methods. Remember. So now we have to define both of these methods implementation over here. What does that mean? I will just use public void print, and I have to define it's anything. Console.write line. I am implementation of interface method print, right? So I am an implementation of interface method. So this is an implementation. In the same way, I'll have to define, void. What is that? Display. Now, if I define that, of course, if I even do not define any body, of course, it will just, say that, yes, this has been implemented. Control C, Control V. I am implementation of print, not print, it is display. Display, right? So now this is what? So first of all, just remember the concept. And as I'm saying, I'm just giving you an overview of the interfaces. We'll discuss in a very much detail when we'll just talk about this. Tomorrow, we'll just talk about other examples as well and things like that. So now if you see here that we have got an interface. An interface, we define that interface with using this keyword interface, and then we have defined the name of the interface. So this is interface being defined. Now what we have done is that we have just defined declared two methods over here. One of them is print, one of them is, so you see that I am not even using the public with that. You remember why I'm not using the public here? You see what we said. Their members are public by default. Even you are not required to use a public over here. If I use a public, I might be allowed to use that, but you see that I can do that without public as well. By default, these are always public, so I can just avoid that public as well, even. Right? So by default, they are public. So now if you see here, I have now I'm inheriting this class, employee class, from this interface. And what I'm doing is that I have to give definitions of both of these. So you remember that if I just take out this definition, again, just for a comment side, it will just start giving the error. Why? Because it says that does not implement display. So it has to display, it has to just, show that display method, just to define that display method, so that we have got this. So interfaces are like that. So again, there will be lots of questions that will be coming into your mind that that why they are used. But again, that right now, just consider that interfaces are there where we just define the name of the variable and name of the method, and we just do that. And one of the things that we have discussed, that it cannot have a field. So for example, I say integer name, whatever, and I just define that. So it is not basically allowed to have interface name. We cannot just define a variable there. So there will be no field typically being defined, right? So let's see what else. Yes, so multiple inheritances, what we say. So this is our iEmployee. So let me create another one and call it iEmployee1, or maybe 2. Just call it 2. So I've defined another interface with that name. And now, as I said, we can basically inherit from 2 interfaces as well. So if I do iEmployee2, I can define from both, right? So there are little confusions now starting to generate. You might be asking that what is this? So we have to implement this over here. So I've defined this print method and display method, but both of these interfaces consist of print and display method. But I'll just explain that, as I said, that I'll be explaining all of these to you, that how you will be just making sure that which one is implemented. What is the confusion over here? This has print method, this has display method, this has print method, this has display method. So when I am inheriting from both of the interfaces, and I'm defining this print and display method. So which print and display method I'm talking about? Whether this is print and display of this one I employee one or I employee, or I'm talking about this I employee two. So I'll talk about that. But for the time being, what you have to remember is that this is the concept of interfaces. That interfaces provide us just the name of the functions definition, and what we do is that we implement those functions into our classes. And we'll talk about what is the importance of interfaces, and we'll talk about some structural important things, as I told you, and we'll talk about that, what is the multiple inheritance and how we can just make sure. So I'm just stopping here today. So I have just given you this example, and I'll start from here, right from here in our tomorrow's class. So I'm just stopping here right now. I'll share this code as well, and now I am about to share the questions with you for today lab session, and you have to just attempt them, right? I'll have to just I'm just